Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another reading with Listen with Vobes. Hello, it's on Southern English Roads we're reading. It's the 22nd of December 2000 and what have you. And we are live, so that's good. And we're very close to the end of the book. We're reasonably close. Let's say hello to a few people. It's a wet and miserable day here in jolly old Worthing, I'm afraid. I hope it's nicer where you are. It's just grim. And unfortunately, I've had to do another inside video. I don't like doing all these inside videos. I feel that people... this is for the Bald Explorer channel. Of course, these ones have to be done inside because I'm reading. And this is what the studio is and how everything works. Anyway, enough of this nonsense. Hello to the lovely Julia, who is out there. Nice to see you. And Turbo Stream, grey overcast in dry Birmingham. Laura Noel, nice to see you. We had snow, apparently, she says. All gone now, though. Did you make a snowman? Tall Podge, good afternoon from damp Guildford. Turbo Stream, at least the days start getting longer. Yes, well, the days don't get any longer, do they? I mean, be fair, we don't get an extra hour or anything like that. But daylight, is that what you said? Maybe you said that. Maybe you said days start getting longer. Oh, no, you didn't. Daylight will start getting longer. I think is what you mean. I don't mean to be pedantic. I know. You can hit me. What else have we got down there? Witchfinder General, good afternoon to you. Matthew Hopkins, nice to see you. Have you done any burning of witches recently? What else have we got there? Billabong O'Neill, nice to see you too. Where I originate from, we're known as Deedars. Deedars. Dee-da, 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 day, dee-da, dee-da. Is that where that comes from? Good afternoon, John F. Justine Jones, hello to you from North Somerset. And Nigel Sadler, Lee Lawson, Linda Kane, Audrey Forbes, Josh Hastings, Dave of Yore. Very nice to see you. Michael White, Dudley Sawyer. Good afternoon. Getting dark and wet here. Yes, I know. It was dark when I was parking my van an hour ago. I thought, wait, this is only 3 o'clock. It's not even 4 and it was dark. It was a toss-up between Kittens and Richard this hour. Richard won for now. Oh, yeah, sorry, I've just insulted you, so no doubt you're looking at Kittens. And Julia says, Joseph says hello to everyone. He just woke up from his nap. Oh, he had a nice nap then. Marvellous. Well, I'll see if I can put him back to sleep with my dulcet tones. Where were we, ladies and gentlemen? Bognor Regis, 1954. Butlins. Oh, no, we weren't there. Sorry, that was something else. Right. I think we were about to go to a place called Bullington Cross. I know that doesn't ring a bell. I've just read it in the thing. But they were somewhere, and they're going somewhere else, which has been basically the whole of the book. I could have saved him quite a few words, really, if I said you start somewhere and you finish somewhere else. Well, actually, you finish back where he starts, I believe. Anyway, passing now through a pleasant country without any special features, we reached Bullington Cross, a lonely inn, so named, that stood where 4 roads met. From this spot, we descended through a shady tree-lined lane to Sutton Courtenay, an exceedingly clean and picturesque village, mostly consisting of thatched cottages, a village that pleased us much. Here we found a wooden church of rather quaint though modern construction, with timber buttresses in imitation of stone ones that certainly gave it an original look. We actually discovered 2 hostelries in the village within sight of each other, manifestly relics from the old coaching days. Both appeared reasonably good for rural inns, and, to save ourselves the difficulty of deciding which was the best, we simply drove up to the first one, called the Coach and Horses. There might have been an H in horses. I just dropped it for effect. The rival inn over the road was the Swan. This proclaimed its title by a large white swan stuffed and enclosed in a glass cage over the entrance. A somewhat novel form of sign. I wonder if that is still there. Beyond this was the stable archway, with a date 1767 inscribed over it, and on each side of it had an iron lamp brackets. Oh, lovely, like those old iron lamp brackets, in situ, though the lamps were gone. Shame. And that was 100 and whatever it is years ago, 130 odd years ago. Doubtless, excuse me yawning, doubtless both these inns had seen better and busier days. They had an indescribable look of having done so, though we latter-day road travellers had no cause to complain of our treatment, nor of our moderate bill. How it comes that so remote and small a village should possess two such inns was a problem, but the world is full of such problems that we have long ago given up bothering our heads about such matters, contented to accept facts as we find them. Sutton Courtenay abounds in picturesque bits are very delightful to the eye of the sketcher and very profitable to the amateur photographer. Our ever-growing stock of negatives was considerably increasing here, and besides peeps of sundry old cottages, we took away with us unwillingly, on our part I must confess, the portraits of a number of the juvenile inhabitants, full-face ones. The younger generation of the rural population is getting versed in the use of the hand camera, and when a portion thereof sees the opportunity, it is determined to be took in pictures, so knowledgeable spreads and photographic pictures are spoilt. Oh, I see. And knowledge, not knowledgeable, sorry, I beg pardon. Yes, it's determined to be took in the pictures, so knowledge spreads and photographic pictures are spoilt. They're not really spoilt, as we know. It's far, far more interesting looking back in history, historically, unless you're studying a building or a landscape for other purposes, to have a person in your photographs. As we were looking round the inn yard before proceeding with our journey, a red-faced, watery-eyed stranger came up to us, a shabby, genteel-looking individual, and evidently not a bigoted teetotaler. He was kind enough, in a rather unsteady voice, to express his admiration for the dog-cart, but suggested a few alterations, which he stated would be great improvements. I sees how you be a commercial gent. I'm assuming that he's implied that he's drunk, I think. He further remarked, I can always tell a commercial gent when I sees one. We expressed our surprise that he should be so perspicacious. He didn't seem to quite understand us, but smiled knowingly, getting bolder, and continued, Now, what may be your line of travel? I've been wondering ever since you came here. We met this query by another, and said that he must first tell us what he did. We thought this would be a poser, and thereupon he would go away and leave us in peace, but what a mistake. Oh, he replied readily, my business ain't very profitable. I'm the father of the family. It takes me all my time looking after them, and the wife. Poor wife, we pitied her. Then, fortunately, the ostler came on the scene, and the stranger disappeared in the bar. Could it be possibly for a drink? I'll just have another one for the road, if that's all right, bartender. On from Sutton Courtenay, our road went as straight as a line, with long ups and downs, and no regard for gradients. The ancient Romans must have originally planned this road, we exclaimed, and we looked at our map and found it marked Roman Road. There was something decidedly very businesslike about the road, making direct from one point to another without the slightest deviation or turning. The country we passed through was bleak and desolate, a mass of rolling uplands, with scarcely a tree or a cottage to be seen till we came in sight of Winchester. The landscape was somewhat similar in character to that of Salisbury Plain, though it had less distinctive features. The chief object in our first view of Winchester was the big prison, with its tower set boldly on a hill. Is there a big prison? Is that still there? Prison of Winchester. I'm intrigued. That has intrigued me, gentle listener. Gentle listener, sitting there with your whiskers round your chops. Let's have a look. I want to know if there is Winchester Prison. Is it still there? Winchester Prison, where people are locked up for all sorts of... Oh, HMP Winchester. This can't be the same one. Hang on, let's just give that a little share here. There has probably been a prison in Winchester, mainly known as Winchester Jail, since the 13th century. Right, yes. But which one? The prison today... Yeah, December 2010. I want one at the beginning of the century. Why don't they give us every iteration of them? You can't have every iteration, no. You can't possibly. Is that it? Oh, this looks like an old version of it. That must be the old... Come on, give us the... Winchester Prison... Oh, go away. No, I don't accept any of that nonsense. I don't want your cookies cluttering up my computer, thank you. There it is. Look at that. Now you can see that is the old one. This version, John Howard was responsible for suggestions to the prison reform, and he came up with this concept that if you had the guard and the warder in the middle, you could look down from one central point, which is why it's star-shaped, or cross-shaped, if you like. And that must have been what they saw, and all of the other bits, obviously, must have been what they saw. That is interesting, isn't it? 19th century photobombing. Photobombing? Only 2 dings. Not sure what you mean by photobombing. Do you mean it got bombed during the war by photographers or something? I never quite understand that terminology. Anyway, so let's get out of that. Get out of it. Go on, get out of it. It's a good job that screen doesn't show the passwords, isn't it? I almost just happily nip onto that screen. Yes, the first object in view was the big prison, with its tower set boldly on a hill. Not the cathedral, as one might expect. That was hidden in a hollow. It does not lord it over the city as most cathedrals do, fitting emblems of the olden ecclesiastical supremacy. At Winchester we drove up to the erst famous posting and coach house, the George. On approaching this ancient and historic hostelry, we noticed boldly inscribed upon it, George Hotel, established in the X111 century. Presumably that is the 13th century. Accommodation for driving parties. This was followed by a list of 15 towns with the road distances to each from the George, duly given after them, by which it would appear that driving tours are in vogue in this part of the country, and even that the driving tourist has become of sufficient importance as to be specially catered for. Otherwise, why this prominent notice? Indeed, we learnt during a chat with the ostler that quite a number of driving parties puts up here in the summertime.
They put up here in the summer, yeah, loads of them, mate.
There must be 3 others putting up with me tonight besides yourself, he said. 2 of them are going to the New Forest. I don't know where they'll be going to. There's nothing like driving for enjoyment and seeing the country. If I was a gentleman, that's how I'd like to spend my money. And small blame to you, worthy ostler. May you make a little fortune, or have one left unexpectedly to you, and go a-driving. Hello to Ben Reeve. Nice to see you. Jeremy Bentham came up with a similar panopticon idea of circular prisons with the guard tower in the centre. Cuba was the only country, I think, to put it into practice. Yes, I think what's his face, who I mentioned, John Howard, came up with he reformed it and was making these loose suggestions, but I imagine somebody else actually did the proper planning of it. I don't think he did, because he was, in the 18th century, wasn't he, riding about on horseback from prison to prison. Amazing character. I've got a biography of him, actually, which I read some years ago. Birmingham Prison is similar in layout to Winchester. Not that I've been inside, says TurboStream hastily. I know nothing about it. Yeah, there's a missing 5 years in your biog, I noticed, where you say you were away. Not quite sure what that means. Away where? Anyway, sitting that evening within the old courtyard of the hotel, now roofed over with glass and turned into a lounge, we observed no less than 15 bicycles against the walls. What, I wonder, would the landlords of old have said or thought of such a sight? The waiter told us that the cycles belonged to parties touring and resting there for the night. We left the cathedral unvisited on this occasion, for we had seen it more than once before. So, whilst the light lasted, we set out for a stroll round about the city suburbs, where the tourist seldom finds his way, on the off chance that we might see something of interest. And we did, for on high ground overlooking the city, we came upon a grey stone obelisk, on the foot of which was inscribed this: "This monument is erected by the Society of Natives on the very spot of ground to which the markets were removed, and whose basis is the very stone on which exchanges were made, whilst the city lay under scourge of the destroying pestilence in the year of 1666. Oh, 1666. Great Fire of London, though, wasn't it? 1666. Early next morning, we found one of it. Nip Cozy. What? Early next morning found us once more on the road. After glancing at our map, we planned to drive first along the valley of the Itchin and then the Scretchen, and so by Alresford, which isn't how you pronounce it, I know that, but I don't know how you pronounce it. One of those letters you don't exclaim or pronounce, or whatever the word is. Why is it some people say pronounce and some people say pronounce, the pronunciation or the pronunciation? Why is that a difference? Why do they change the spelling? Why do they make a meal of it when they answer my comments in YouTube? Alresford, is it? Alresford, says the lovely Julia. Thank you. Make our way to Petersfield, anyway. And after consulting with the ostler, we were gratified to learn that this was the only level road out of Winchester. The valley of the Itchin from Winchester upwards, that is, surprised us by its gentle beauty. It simply abounded in picturesque bits the whole way. It simply abounded in picturesque bits the whole way. This most charming valley is well worth leisurely exploring afoot. It is very rewarding to the lover of tranquil beauty, to say nothing of the antiquity, or antiquary even, for some of the ancient churches of old houses scattered along it are considerably of archaeological interest. To both angler and artist it is, I should imagine, almost ideal ground, winding river of clearest water, many-tinted woods, graceful sloping hills, cool green meadows, the old world villages dotted here and there, combine to make scenery that truly deserves the term bewitching. It is bewitching, is it not, Alfred? Yes, my dear, it is bewitching. The first hamlet we came to was on the edge of a cliff, saying to be or not to be. He decided not to be and flung himself over. The second hamlet we came to, therefore, was Headbourne Worthy. Here the primitive little church, set close to the roadside with its rude-built flint tower, surmounted by a quaint wooden belfry, interested us. It was such a ding, picturesque and welcome change from the usual type of village church. I'm going to buy this man a thesaurus, I think. The ancient edifice is separated from the... It should be called On Picturesque Southern English Roads. That's what it should be called. The amount... I mean, I don't know whether there's enough picturesque words now left in the entire vocabulary of the English language. He must have used pretty much... If I go like there, I wonder if some of them fall out. Oh, there's a couple. Get rid of those. It is a bit overkill, isn't it? Anyway, the ancient edifice is separated from the highway by a running stream of water, which is spanned by a small footbridge. We crossed over this in order to discover if, by any chance, the church door were open. I've noticed this, and maybe somebody with grammar can correct me. Why is it they say, if by any chance the church door were open? Surely that would be was, because it's a singular. The church door was. We wanted to see if the church door was open, not were open. Surely you would say if the church doors, or if any of the church doors were open. Why do they do that? I want to know. Because he's done that more than once. And actually sometimes I've corrected him because I thought that singular was and plural was were. Plural was were. So it seems fastidiously out. Anyway, whatever. They wanted to see if the church door was or were open. And when the good fortune... And we had the good fortune not only to find it so, but also the clerk within. How many times has he turned up at a church and there's somebody just so happens, by luck, by the... I mean, you're getting... I know you're coming to the end of the book and your imagination must be slipping. Lee Lawson says, it's an old style of writing. Were. Yes. Why did they change it then? Why did they change it? What was wrong with it? I mean, did it not mean plural back then? If it were open. The clerk didn't appear to consider that there was much interest in any one of the churches, in anything in the church, except that it was very old. However, at the West End we discovered what we imagined to be a small chapel of Saxon origin. This is divided from the larger, though smaller church, by an undoubted Saxon arch. In this chapel, which is bare to the walls, are the remains of a large sculpture of the crucifixion, with 2 hallowed saints on either side, presumably intended for the Virgin Mary and St. John. The carving has been chiselled flat with the wall, possibly by the Puritans. It is the fashion to put down all these destructions to them. But the outlines of the figures and cross can still plainly be made out, with the halos around 3 heads. We asked the clerk if he knew anything about this. He replied,
I have heard say as how it is supposed to have been a little Saxon church, and the carving shows the crucifixion of our Lord, with 2 thieves either side.
2 thieves? Within the tower of the church, the ancient and massive woodwork, black and bent with age, that upholds the belfry is curious, but the idea to support the bells independently of the external structure is a sound one, as it saves all the strain on the building itself. On the north wall of the chancel, we noticed a quaint little 15th century brass to one Ios Kent, a scholar of the College de Westminster, who is represented as customary with his hands folded in the attitude of prayer, listening to his Sony Walkman. On the south wall by the nave, by way of contrast, is a well-executed modern brass to a lady that bears the date of 1884. But though treated with considerable skill, the modern brass does not lend itself to decorative display, least of all on brasses. What the medieval craftsmen who sculptured the ancient knights in full armour on their altar tombs, with their dames in ruffles by their side and their faithful dog at their feet, have done with the modern frock coat and hideous black hat. What indeed? There are some things beyond the power of art to make beautiful. Oh, I don't know. I think somebody in a nice modern frock coat with a hat, black hat, could look beautiful. Anyway, that's the end of that chapter. Thank goodness for that. I was starting to get a little bit confused on that. What have we got here? As in would be. It's old style of writing were. Josh Hastings says as in would be. Archaic, I should think, says Linda Kane. It's a bit like the use of they rather than he or she. Oh, I'm not sure I understand. I shall have to have a word with Mrs. Crisp, my old English teacher. She's probably dead. She's probably quite crisp now, I should think. Well, probably soggy. If only we'd called her Mrs. Soggy. Chapter 20, ladies and gentlemen. Chapter 20. Oh, we're so excited. As we drove up the lovely Itchin Valley, the silvery river winding in and out of the wood landscape to our right kept us welcome company. The next village we came to was Kingsworthy, a neat, clean little place possessing a picturesque church with an ivy-clad tower. Then followed a pleasant stretch of peaceful pastoral country, with here and there an ancient farmstead, and ever and again a lowly cottage home embowered in foliage, at the end of which stretch we found ourselves at the end of which stretch we found ourselves at Itchin Abbas, a lovely spot by the riverside. Here we rested some time in order to quietly enjoy the scenery. At this delightful and dreamy spot, the river is crossed by an old stone grey with years bridge, the many low arches of which double themselves in the glassy surface of the slow gliding water. On the bank of the stream stood an old mill. This, combined with the bridge, a tumbling weir, and the leafy woods beyond, formed a charming picture and tempted us to make a sketch of it. It was a wonderful, pretty spot, and after our sketch was finished, we still lingered on, lazily listening to the soft wind whispering to the trees overhead, to the falling and plashing of the water over the weir, and to the droning of the great mill wheel. Such sounds have the power to quiet the restless pulse of care. I assume that is another Shakespearean quote or something. And they also have a wonderfully soothing effect on the town-tired ear. Rural sounds are as peace-bestowing as rural scenery. One indeed is but the complement of the other. Absolute silence, such as one may sometimes experience on a lonely mountainside or a desolate moorland, is depressing rather than restful, but nature is seldom in such an uncompanionable mood. Then, as we progressed up the narrowing valley, the river became streamlike and even more lovable than before. At Itchin Stoke, we passed a fine modern church set on a knoll. The building appeared high in proportion to its width, but what chiefly interested us in it was the introduction of gargoyles really intended for service, and not mere meaningless reproductions of ancient forms without their functions being considered. Some little way after Itchin Stoke, we reached the head of the valley and came in sight of Alresford, which is approached in this direction by a long avenue of trees on the side of the road. I thought he was in Alresford a few minutes ago. The walk along this would appear to be a favourite promenade of the inhabitants, judging from the number of people we noticed strolling there. Before us, a flag was flying on the dark grey church tower of Alresford that made it look more like some old castle keep than a portion of a place of worship. From our point of view, the tower stood well above the roof trees and of the little town, and without much strain upon the imagination, we might have fancied ourselves medieval pilgrims approaching a medieval town. Have you got your joust? Yes, I've got my joust. Joust in time. Marvellous. We would go and have some medieval mead. You don't need to say medieval when we're in the medieval period. I know. I say it for effect. Alresford pleased us very much. It is a nice place. I've been there, actually. I have actually been there, even though I don't know how to pronounce it. I have been there. It pleased us very much. It looks so neat and clean. Its chief street is wide and sunny, for the houses on either side of the way are happily low, mostly of 2 stories, so that they cast but little shade. Besides this, to add to its pleasantness, there were trees on the sides of the roadway. I find also that I made a note of the bright windows as we drove in, and the well-kept doorways. No, I didn't. Not the doorways. I don't know what I'm talking about. Doorways is a word further down. Oh, no, I'm quite right. Yes, I lost my space. Ignore me. I'm going bonkers here. Here at the Swan, we made our midday halt. Oh, they've been in there. They've obviously gone round and come back. Sometimes I have no idea what's going on in this. Looking at the map, it might be old Alresford, says Justine Jones. Here at the Swan, we made our midday halt and were shown into a pleasant, low-ceilinged panelled room, though unfortunately the panel was painted and grained in imitation wood again, a proceeding that always seems to me at the height of absurdity. If a wainscoted chamber must be painted, and darkness is the only possible palliation for this sin, then let the honest paint be proclaimed, and not a paltry sham that deceives no one. Rambling round about whilst our horses rested, we noticed a public house with the uncommon sign of the Peaceful Home. We could only trust that in this case the title was appropriate. Continuing our perambulation, we discovered just outside the large town a large sheet of water, almost deserving the name of a lake, and we wandered round its reed-grown banks till we came to a little and very picturesque thatched cottage, which we forthwith sketched, and then strolled back to our inn, and were soon again speeding on our pleasant way. The country now, for a space, was not remarkable in any way. At Bishop Sutton, the first village on the road, we called another short halt as we observed in the churchyard a tombstone roofed over, and we thought, as so much manifest care had been taken to protect it from the weather, it might be interesting. However, we merely found on the monument some simple verses recorded with the deaths of 2 infants. These stars of comfort for the moment given just rose on earth, then set rise in heaven. Then we turned to another monument, which also recorded the death of 3 infants, with a curious inscription, which is below, of which I just give the first few lines, and then the last 2. Bold infidelity, turn pale and dire, beneath this sod 3 infants' ashes lie. Just ignore I've just said anything. We'll do that again. Bold infidelity, turn pale and die. Beneath this sod 3 infants' ashes lie. Say, are they lost or saved? If death's by sin, they sinned, for they lie here. If heaven's by works, in heavens they can't appear. Yeah. Then the last couple of lines are, they died for Adam's sin. They lived for Jesus died. It's a bit sickly, isn't it? But why such a startling challenge to infidelity? This monument is dated 1831. Nowadays it seems that burial boards exercise quite a despotic and not always a reasonable or enlightened censorship over tombstone inscriptions. I have it on authority of a well-known London daily paper that the burial board of a certain town, not 100 miles from London, refused to allow a certain verse which had been selected by a resident to be inscribed on the memorial in the cemetery to a deceased son, as not up to its standard of tombstone poetry. The lines were, "He is not dead, the child of our affection, but gone unto that school where he no longer needs our poor protection, and Christ himself doth rule." What's wrong with that? The ratepayer concerned was naturally very indignant, and little wonder. I don't understand. We further learnt from the newspaper account that one of the members of the board declared that the verse read like doggerel. Possibly he'd never heard of such a poet as Longfellow, who'd wrote it. It would be interesting to know what is the standard tombstone poetry required by the average burial board. We learnt also that on the same authority that a line of our own Tennyson, "The finger of God touched them and they slept," was vetoed by a different board as irrelevant, and I know of other and even more astonishing cases of a similar nature. For example, "A finger of fudge is just enough to give them each a treat," was also rejected as "double diamond works wonders, but it won't bring them back to life." In this case, I guess that's true. Try burial boards dressed in a little brief authority. Truly, burial boards dressed in a little brief authority managed to make themselves supremely ridiculous. That doesn't matter much, certainly, but they gave us needless pain to. I can't read today. That doesn't matter much, certainly, but they give needless pain to others, and that does matter. Do the shake and vac, and that'll bring your descendants back. That's another one that they wouldn't permit. What a shame. I bet he drinks Carling Black Label. Yes, it was poison. Oh, that's not such a good one. And this other one that was inscribed on a tombstone: kills 99% of all germs and humans dead. Shouldn't have drank from that bleach bottle. After Bishop Sutton, the scenery improved and soon reached our very high order of woodland beauty. Our route lay along cross-country roads. At least we elected to traverse these. I'm sorry, I was just half reading what your comments were, which is why I had this incandescent pause. It's not the right word. Anyway, whatever. Yes, our route lay along cross-country roads. At least we elected to traverse these in preference to the dusty highway, finding that we should lose no ground or hardly any by doing so. Moreover, we reasoned to ourselves that the shady byways would be more pleasant to drive on, besides being more likely to lead us to the real heart of rural England. Nor were we disappointed in our prognostications. Who's had any prognostications recently? They are quite nice, but I find the wrappers difficult to get off. In a mile or so we left the main road and proceeded up a narrow lane, trusting entirely to our excellent map for our present and future bearings. The lane led us between deep beech woods that reminded us a bit of Buckinghamshire. Then, after a while, the confined lane opened into a vast undulating common or waste upland, whose boundaries we could not see, a greenland solitude dotted over with beech trees, clumps of tangled brambles and ragged thorns, and across the far-reaching grassy slopes that led down to dark shady hollows deep in the leafy gloom wound narrow footpaths and uneven bridle tracks that seemed to beg us to stop and explore them. But alas, it would take more than one lifetime to explore all of rural England. I do not even yet know one country of it thoroughly. Perhaps no man really does. I once had a chat with a guidebook compiler who honestly thought that he did, but I soon convinced him to the contrary. He happened not to know much of it as I did, and certainly by a great deal. Yet I was less familiar with that special country than with one or two others. But to return to the journey, and this sequestered part of Hampshire in particular, the wild open woodland all around charmed us with its tender grace and rich yet restful tints of golden green softening away into greeny greys. It was all so wild and free, so beautiful without being in any way pretty or petty. The scenery was grand but lovable, impressive without being stern. From that breezy upland, the prospects looking down and all around were simply enchanting. We looked over the surrounding woods onto the blue distance of moor woods that spread away and away into a long range of shapely hills steeped in softest summer sunshine, a dreamy, poetic distance, a mysterious land, remote and vague, where all things seemed possible, the earthly paradise that never is, except in fancy or the grandeur of the far away. This little corner of England, out of the beaten track of pleasure travel, and out of sight and sound of the fussy railway as well, is worth exploring. The scenery, though not of the striking nature to lend itself to vivid sensational descriptions, strongly appeals to all lovers of sylvan quietude. My God, that's so... Leaving this lovely spot with its spacious panoramas of spreading woodlands and circling hills, our road led us on, with many ups and downs, to a point in the valley where 4 crossroads met. That doesn't seem right. It led us to a point in the valley where 4 crossroads met. Let me just work that out in my head for a second. That's a crossroad. That's a crossroad. So that's 16 roads. I don't think he means that. 4 crossroads met. How can you have 4 crossroads? Doesn't he mean 4 roads crossed? Is that not what he means? You can't have 4. I mean, that's 8. That's 16 roads. I was hoping he would stop off at the Windmill Inn, says Lee Lawson, in 4 marks, made by my in-laws when Dick was a lad. Oh, run by. Sorry, I misread that. 4 roads meet at a... 4 roads meet at a crossroads. No, but he doesn't say that. He says 4 crossroads meet. And I can't even find it now. This little corner, explaining on... Leaving this spot, the circling... Yes, where 4 crossroads met. It's just bad English, isn't it, really? 4 roads cross is probably what I mean. From thence, we had a delightful spin into Petersfield, with one sharp and sudden dip down a tree-shaded glen, the road being most of the way in our favour and the scenery all that we could desire. It was late and growing dark when we reached our destination, and cheerful lights were gleaming from many a window and open door of the sleepy old town as we drove along to the Dolphin, where we found a welcome as well as clean and comfortable quarters for the night, besides entertainment for the mind in the coffee-room by the conversation of a fellow country lover and explorer, the Bald Explorer, with whom we exchanged notes and ideas till so late an hour that we felt quite dissipated for the country. I must have meant 4 crossroads. Yes, 4 candles. Oh, could I have a crossroad at each 4 corners of a square plot of land? Could I have a crossroad at each... Yeah, exactly. There you go. It is confusing, is it not? Anyway, how are we doing on the old time front? No, we're nearly get. I'm rattling through a little bit fast now because I think we're all a bit fed up with this now, aren't we? I mean, I'm not saying fed up as in bored. It's all rather samey, like most of my work. It's all a bit samey, Richard. Yes, thank you. From Petersfield to Petworth through Midhurst was our proposed programme for the day's wandering. The morning proved fine and sunny, and even with sunshine, or some such words that I have now mashed up in my head, with a pleasant breeze to tempt the warmth, so that nothing was wanting to complete our enjoyment. All throughout the journey, the weather had been kindly disposed towards us, and it appeared as though we were going to be. And it appeared, I'd just read the words, Richard. Read the words. Don't make them up. And it appeared as though it were going to be so to the end thereof. Right. It's all these little. When they have a lot of little words, one after the other, it's quite tricky to read. There being nothing to delay us in Petersfield, we, as usual, made an early start. It is pleasant to get away in the first fullness and freshness of the morning, and to rest oneself and bait the horses in the heat of the noontide. Bait the horses? Here, come get it, come get it, come, nope. Come get it, come, nope. Come get it. To bait the horses? What does that mean? Anyway, sorry, I'm supposed to be rattling through. To bait the horses in the heat of the noontide. Besides, by doing so, the whole long summer day is before one, and therefore ample time is secured to linger here and there on the way, as the scenery or fancy may dictate. We passed at first through a pleasant farming land, a combination of green hedge road meadows and golden cornfields ripened for the early harvest, great patches of waving yellow in the sunshine and the breeze, varied bits and wedges of dark woodlands, now and then, just to break any monotony. Nature and man have worked together here to make the land an Eden to the eye. The trail of the serpent may be across it truly, but if so, it was not apparent. As we proceeded, the familiar outline of the South Downs became visible in the distance on our right, a soft green in the sunshine and a pretty grey in the shade, lengthening out towards the long horizon till lost in a pale blue palpitating haze. What a lovely background and contrast those bare and tender-tinted downs made to the rich cultivated valley below, aglow with colour, with its seas of golden corn, enriched by the burning scarlet of the spreading poppy, and its grey flint-built farmsteads with their red-tiled roofs, silvered and bronzed with lichen. Through this lovely country we drove in a delightful daydream till we came to the pretty and elevated village of Rowgate, from which there is a fine view of the Downs. Another pleasant stretch of country brought us to the tree-embowered hamlet of Trotton, set in a shady nook by the side of the little river Rother. Here, close to the road, we observed a grey and ancient church that apparently had happily never known the hand of the restorer, nor that of the modern builder. It looked so ancient and hoary that we were tempted to stop on the chance of being able to obtain a glance inside. Somehow we had a sudden, intuitive feeling that the church would prove interesting, just one of those impressions that arise from where one hardly knows. We fortunately found the door open, which saved us going a clerk hunting, and the vicar's wife, at least we gathered from our conversation with her that she was such, playing the harmonium, for the primitive fane did not possess an organ. Yes, it's convenient that there was somebody in there, wasn't it? I suppose they couldn't go over the bridge at Trotton anyway. I imagine the lights were still red. because they've got traffic lights there at the moment. Well, they've always had traffic. When I say always, I mean not always, obviously. On seeing us, she most kindly left her practising, for it was an awful din, and we'd had put cotton buds in our ears, and volunteered to show us over the building. Here, in the chancel on either side of the communion table, are 2 altar tombs with ornamental carvings on their bases. They appear to have belonged to personages of considerable importance, but the effigies are gone and no inscriptions remain to reveal whose memory they are intended to commemorate. Our guide told us that nothing whatever was known about them, nor could anything be gleaned thereof, and even learned archaeologists and antiquaries, those people of antiquity, had been consulted in vain. So hard it is even for the great and mighty to perpetuate their name and fame in this world. Here the inevitable moral should follow, but I refrain. A 12-year-old little lady friend of mine informed me one day that she never read tales with morals. They are always so stupid, and she was right, I imagine. In the centre of the chancel we noticed another altar stone, standing alone in the stately din. This had a massive slab of Purbeck marble laid on the top, let into which was a large and fine brass, beautifully executed, and in an excellent state of preservation. We were quite unprepared to find so important a brass in such a remote country church. A legend, in Latin, informed us that this brass was to the memory of Thomas Camoy, formerly Lord Camoy, a baron, and commander for the King and Kingdom of England, and a brave knight of the Garter. His end he commended to Christ on the 28th day of March, 1419. This Lord Camoy, not of the soap people, we afterwards learnt commanded the left wing of the English army, mainly composed of bowmen, at the Battle of Agincourt, and for this bravery on that memorable occasion he was created a Knight of the Garter on St. George's Day following. His wife was the widow of the renowned Hotspur, and she was eulogised by Shakespeare as the gentle Kate. Mentioning St. George's Day reminded me that our courteous guide informed us that the church is dedicated to St. George of England. I do not at the moment remember any other church so dedicated. Stunning wall paintings at Trotton Church, says Linda Kane. Yes. Humpback Bridge there had traffic lights, exactly. Now to describe this fine and interesting brass. Oh, please don't. It bears the figure of Lord Camoy in full plate armour, with a collar of SS and the garter on his left leg. His wife is shown by his side, her hand clasped in his. At the foot of Lord Camoy is the usual faithful dog, a basset hound. And at the foot of this countess is a curious diminutive little figure, presumed to be intended to represent her son, who died in infancy. The diminutive figure is standing and gives a very quaint appearance to the brass. But this most interesting monument, I should imagine one of the finest brasses in the kingdom, did not end our discoveries, for in the floor of the nave, let into a great slab of black marble, we noticed as we walked by another large and finely engraved brass to the Marguerite di Camoy, who died in 1310. This wonderful brass, for the period, has 9 shields of arms powdered over the dress, and there are recesses in the stone showing by their shapes where 6 other shields have been. This brass is noteworthy not only for its size, the artistic rendering of the figure and dress, and its excellent state of preservation, but as being, to a woman, the earliest one of its kind, I believe, in the kingdom. It's interesting, too, as plainly showing the details of the quaint dress of a lady of quality of the time. Much may be learnt, both as to dress and the wearing of armour, from these ancient brasses. They are histories in metal. The vicar's wife pointed out to us a leper's window, now built up. The very title today seems strange and unfamiliar and takes us back long centuries to a wholly different civilization. Then our attention was called to an old tombstone laid flat on the floor with the abbot's crozier sculptured thereon. Unfortunately, this interesting relic of the old days was half hidden by pews. Furthermore, we were shown a brass on the south wall with the inscription in Latin to Thomas Otway, the dramatic poet, who was born here on the 3rd of March 1651 and who died in 1658. Dr. Johnson said that there was only one language fit for monumental inscriptions, and that was Latin, as it had changed not, and could be read by all the educated people of the world. Still, I, for one, in spite of the worthy doctor's dictum, prefer English that I can read without much trouble. It is curious to note how the language of monumental inscriptions has changed with the changing of times, leaving the puzzling Anglo-Saxon out of the question. We have the Norman French, then the Latin, and lastly the simple English. There's somebody at the door. There's somebody banging at the door. Hang on a minute. In the middle of a show. Thank you very much. Very kind. You're a star. Cheers. Bye-bye. An Irishman with the letters I-R-A by gum on him left this intriguing. For Monsieur le Vaube. I don't think it's a large nose. We better see what it is, haven't we? It's not often I get these sort of things happen. Sitting by the fire. It was a cold winter's night. The fire was raging in the grate. Stop it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a first. Isn't this interesting? An impromptu unboxing. There we go. Look at that. Should have done this on the Vogue show. There is old Mark and Nikki. Happy Christmas! Isn't that nice? And the means to hang it up. My goodness, isn't that lovely? How about that? What a load of old rubbish. Something else for the recycling. Anyway, sorry about that. I'll have to get that up. We'll have to stick it in the show. That's very nice. Mark doesn't actually watch this show, so he would have missed all of that. What a swine. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, I think we've come to the end of our reading today. I was reading pretty atrociously. Yes, leaving the church. We're going to leave the church and we're going to go somewhere else. The ruins of Cowdray. Oh, yes, we're going to go over there. So that's a good place. How close are we to finishing this monstrosity? I have enjoyed it, even if it is old-fashioned. Justine, I have enjoyed it. I bought one of these other ones, so I've got to read one of his other ones. He has moments where I think he's brilliant at his descriptions, and and then other moments where it's just too flowery, isn't it? But it's of its time, and clearly he knew what he was doing, and he's a brilliant artist. I think it's an interesting book. What do we got here? Please, can you show us the brass mentioned before you go? Oh, the brass. Oh, the brass. Oh, what in the book? You mean? Julius just texted me. You see, where are we? Trotton brass. Is it of Camoy or something? Camoy. Is it? Was it soap or perfume? Camoy. Was that? I can't remember now whether they did soap or perfume. Trotton brass. Let's see if that comes up within St George's Church. Oh, here we go. We might get something. Let's have a little look. So there's the church. It is a nice church. I've been there, done a walk round there. There's a video. I don't think I went in the church, actually, to be fair. That's the church. That's the steeple. Open the doors, and they've all gone home. Oh, yes, here we go. Look, firstly, that's what... was it Lee or Linda, I think, was talking about all of these things. Look at those. Very nice, isn't it? And of course, that isn't how it would have looked. It would have been a lot brighter back in the day. You know, that's faded. Imagine how vivid it must have looked in the day when you went to church and saw all of that. How marvellous. And here is a couple of the brasses. This is the ledger stone of Thomas de Camoy, first Baron of soap making. And that's all very nice. And here's the other. Oh, this is the woman with all the brasses mixed. Can we get closer? We can. There she is. I want to see the thing with the diminutive character. All the brasses have gone now. Look at that. All the brasses have gone. They must have been nicked in the last 130 years. They've been gouged out, the swines. The shields. They couldn't get this big one off. How about that? Camay, says Lee Lawson. Is Camay? Oh, is it Camay who's the soap? Camay soap. Used to use it, says Audrey Forbes. Yeah, there we go. Any others? No, that was it. Interesting. Brilliant. There we are. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. How lovely is that? Anyway, nice to see you. Nice. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. The other one with the couple and a dog, and the other one with the couple, the dog, and the little person. Shield is another soap. Yes, how interesting. Yeah, the Shield. So Thomas Camoy came down there, and somebody else nicked all the shields. They obviously nicked his soap and gave it a different name. That's how that is. Diminutive figure is on the first brass. Oh, is it? Oh, yes, so it is. Hang on. There he is. Oh, yeah, and then next to him is the dog. Is that the dog? That is a weird-looking dog. That's more like a lion, isn't it? Or was it a lion? Can't remember what you said now. The dog. It's this bloke here, this woman, I assume that's a woman, that must be her boobs, is treading on the dog. Weirdly, it looks like a negative, doesn't it? It looks like we're looking at a negative. I suppose we are, because is it the brasses have just been removed, or is that the brass? I don't know. There's the little diminutive bloke.
Hello, I'm a little diminutive bloke. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Anyway, we managed to sort out the loose ends on all of that. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of it. and I will catch up with you soon. Tomorrow, indeed. What's tomorrow? Oh, wait. So before you go, important news. Friday, not quite sure. Friday is Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve at 2:45, I've got to go and have a checkup on my other eye. You remember I had a thing in my eye and I had to go and have it, and we were late because of my eye. Well, and I did it in the evening. They've asked me to go back just to have a final checkup. They don't think anything's wrong. It's just, they're dotting the T's and crossing the I's. Well, I hope they don't cross mine, as long as they don't dot it. So I've got to go back on Thursday and have my eye checked out, but it's at 2:45. And they're going to put these drops in again to look at the eye and to check it. So I can't drive home. The lovely Julia's going to take me there and back, but it means, of course, I'm going to miss the show. Thursday, yes, that's what I mean. Thursday. Christmas is on Friday. What did I say? Is that tomorrow? What day is it today? It's Tuesday today. I'm losing track of where we are. It's Tuesday today, isn't it? Yeah, Tuesday. So Thursday, the 24th, I'd managed to do it at 8:00. So I don't know if people want to come around on Christmas Eve, and you might all be too busy watching the Queen's speech or something. But we'll play it by ear. I'll know tomorrow what I'm doing. Perhaps that is. Friday is Christmas Day, but your eye cometh first. Friday, yes, that's right. Brilliant. Anyway, thank you so much. Take care. Look after yourselves. Have a good evening, and I will catch up with you tomorrow. How do I turn this off? That way. Take care. Bye for now. Bye-bye. Oh, that's the wrong button. That's the wrong button. One day I'll get the hang of this. Bye.